Alrighty. Ben, we are back. How's it going?
Good. Best time of the year, end of football. This past weekend I think is the best week of the year because we get, two games on Saturday, two games on Sunday, and they're typically the highest quality games that we see for the season. You know, Texans Chiefs wasn't that great. Washington Detroit was great though, and then the two games on Sunday both were really good as well.
I would say Texans Chiefs wasn't bad. Like I thought the Texans played really well. It's just like you can't make any mistakes against the Chiefs or you're gonna lose. You make any
Yeah.
mistakes, you're gonna lose because they make zero mistakes. But otherwise, like it's kind of like, you kind of want it's like in boxing. You want the guys swinging for the fences and knocking each other down, etc. You don't really want to watch Mayweather just jab his way to victory. And that's kind of what the Chiefs are right now.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, we've talked about this before, but like when they first won Super Bowls, like the way that they played completely different than how they play now, but they still win. It's like it's crazy. I don't know. I don't think there's any other team capable of doing like what they've done.
Yeah, I agree. It's pretty wild. Well, I'm just going to pull up, this, we use this for Survivor Pool, but we can also use it for, kind of comparing the schedule. I think the schedule's updated on their end. Let me go in and see what we got here. Oops. All righty. So interestingly enough, I'm actually not surprised. So you've got favorites in the Eagles, home team, better performance statistics than the Commanders. I think we all agree that I do believe that there is possibility that Jaden Daniels could outplay Jalen Hurts, and I was quite impressed with the defense for the Commanders last week. They kind of surprised me a little bit, shocked me a bit. So I think there's a chance to get upset, and like even if you look at the difference between the stats, like it's nominal. So it should be a good game, and then it's actually favoring the Bills in the performance stats over the Chiefs. But again, I'm not, as we've talked about in the past, they were lower in our power rankings, which is based on performance statistics. They've been in a lot of close games, but they just don't make many mistakes, and that's what it means at this time of year. It's who's going to make the mistake.
Yeah, the power rankings have had Buffalo and Philly the highest ranked for, 4 to 5 weeks. So it would be kind of unfortunate if we don't get those two matched up just because it would be cool because those have been the two highest ranked teams for quite some time. But like you said, it's hard to there's no numbers that can factor in the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't know. It's bizarre. But I agree with Jaden Daniels. I mean, he's had arguably the best rookie. He's probably had the best rookie season I've ever seen from any player in any sport because anytime a rookie quarterback has had sustained success, even a young quarterback, first 1, 2, 3 years, they've always had a dominant defense behind them. Like you can go all the way back to, Ben Roethlisberger. You can look at someone like Russell Wilson with the Seattle Seahawks. Like all those guys had, even Joe Burrow when he first came up with the Bengals. Yes, he has Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and all that stuff, but they had a very, very good defense when they went to the Super Bowl that they don't have now. The Washington Commanders have like an average defense. They played well against, Detroit, but by all accounts, it's an average defense. So the fact that he's done what he's done is insane, and he also has Terry McLaurin and then a bunch of just random, Zach Ertz and Diami Brown, like just random people that he throws to. Like super impressive what he's done.
Yeah, agreed. Well, and to your point, look at how low they are in the power rankings. Like this is their performance data. Like
Yeah.
they're down towards the middle of the pack. Yet here we are in the conference finals, the championship game.
Yeah, and the health of Jalen Hurts is going to play a big factor for sure. Clearly, he, was not okay after the injury in that game. I don't know how he'll be this weekend. We probably won't know until the game starts, we probably won't have any idea until we see him. on the field. It just is going to come down to if you can stop the best offensive line and Saquon Barkley. I mean, they've played two times this season. Saquon Barkley's ran for 150 yards and two touchdowns against them both times. I don't know if you can stop him. Like even if you want to say like stop Barkley and make Hurts throw, like their offensive line is so good. I don't know like if you can do that. Like they just push people out of the way. Like it might you might be able to stop them for a couple drives, but they're gonna like wear you down eventually.
Yeah, I agree. I think what is the weather? Do you know what the weather is going to be this weekend? I haven't looked for.
Yeah, let me pull up. Let me see.
And then I'm just going to pull up the
Philly says 39 degrees, 8 mile an hour winds, slight chance of snow.
so better weather than last week.
Yeah, it should be better weather. And then Buffalo, KC, same thing, slight chance of rain, but 33 degrees, only 3 mile an hour winds right now, which, wind is more impactful than rain or snow, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And then so you just rattle off the numbers for, I'm just curious what Jaden Daniels numbers
Yeah,
look
he's
like
he
against.
he crushed him on December 22nd. I think he had 5 touchdowns.
I don't
Um,
have the passing yards up here. I can do this differently. Let me pull up the QB.
yeah, 258, but 5 passing touchdowns. That also was the game though. Not to discredit what he did, but he's certainly capable of, doing that. I mean, 9 rush attempts for 81 yards is impressive as well, especially against that defense. But that was the game Jalen Hurts got hurt on like the first drive. He got concussed, so it was Kenny Pickett. And yeah, I think the Commanders won by 3 points in that game.
Well, and they had the ball the whole game, if I remember correctly. Like
Yeah,
the Eagles hardly had the
five
ball.
touchdowns is very impressive. The Eagles' defense has been the best in football, in my opinion, for the last month. Like, this was before the last month because I think this was like in the last week of December. But still, I mean, very impressive.
So if you were looking at a value bet, would you think that that's the upset is potentially the Commanders over, Jaden comes out, has this game. Hertz isn't great. Weather's not great. Someone makes a mistake. Barkley still does what he does, so I don't think that's going to stop.
Yeah, I think depending on the health of Jalen Hurts, I think it'll be a close game. So yeah, I think the spread was 6.5 the last time I looked. Um, I mean, they're not underdogs, but if you're getting Patrick Mahomes below minus like 130 in a playoff game, it's value bet in my opinion as well.
Yeah.
But but yeah, I mean, 6.5 points if Jalen Hurts isn't 100%, definitely could be a close game. I just think it's funny, like we've seen this for multiple years now. We saw it last year. The Ravens were public, against the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. The 49ers were public against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I think people are just tired of Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, so they just bet against them. It's like the inverse of how I think they would operate though, because you would think on the surface the casual NFL fan would know that the Chiefs win all the time, so they'll be like, "Oh, I'll just bet on it." Like it's a close game, a close spread, and I get Mahomes. Like, yeah, I'm gonna bet on that. But I think people hate them so much they just like bet against them purposely.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's exactly it.
And
Like
I
you,
wasn't old enough. I don't know if people did that to like the Patriots, like with Brady. Like maybe people were just like, I'm betting against Brady. Like I'm tired of this guy. I wasn't old. I didn't bet when I was like 12, so I don't know.
well, you definitely it was happening, and the thing is that it might be a little bit different in the Pats situation because the Pats were equally as loved and hated. Whereas KC, significantly smaller market, you just have less hometown fans. You're gonna have some people that love Patrick Mahomes because he's the superstar. You're gonna have some people that love Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, and so you're gonna have a few of those fans. But I think that it's just imbalance. Like even, when we were in Vegas last year, like the number of obviously we're closer to San Francisco at that
Oh,
time, but
it
it
was
was
overwhelming.
like there was like I felt I felt unsafe for Chiefs fans
Yeah.
at the end of that game.
I was like, I didn't wear Chiefs stuff, but I bet on the Chiefs in that game. I went up to the window. It was pretty early in the day, and I bet Kansas City. I actually like went to the lady and like placed the bet. I didn't use a kiosk, and she was like, "You're one of the first people that I've had that bet Kansas City today." And I was like, I just couldn't believe it. But there were so many 49ers fans that were all over.
Yeah, yeah, it was pretty wild. Yeah, just quick story. Like so, I like watching the game. I was like, oh, they're gonna win, and then the coin toss and blah blah, and I was like, oh, they might lose here. And you could literally feel the bar, like the energy being sucked out of the bar. And then so I walked out, and there was like a guy who had been in a fight with somebody, and there was like security there. They weren't kicking him out, but they were like running after somebody else. Like I had no idea. You know what? I was like, I think it's time for me to go home. And
Yeah.
I'm getting out of here. So
Yeah.
I left. But it definitely had a feeling after that game that you know, I would get Niners fans. I'd be upset too. I would hate the Chiefs as well because feels like that was a rug pull. There's a rug pulls to describe it. But yeah, so I wanted to quickly pull up the stats from that game, and well, I remember watching the game. Like Allen definitely controlled the game more than Mahomes from my memory. But three passing touchdowns. It'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see. Like as I said the last couple of weeks, like I'm hoping that this is the year for the Bills. I think Josh Allen is playing his best. I think that he is, an incredible quarterback as well. I have concerns, like even if you watch the Ravens game, all the mistakes the Ravens made and how well the Bills played should have never even been close. But like
Yeah.
you said, they just got conservative at the end and let them back into it and allowed it to be a game that was decided by a drop pass.
Yeah. I don't like you can't do that against Kansas City, but it's like I can't understand why they did it because it's like you've been trying to beat and they weren't playing the Chiefs, last week, but every team in the AFC has been trying to beat the Chiefs for the last 8 years, right? The Bengals did it one year, made it to the Super Bowl. Other than that, the Chiefs have been in the Super Bowl like every year in recent times. Like you would think these teams would want to they play to win instead of, they're playing not to lose. I just don't get it. Like they dominated the first half of the game, and you're exactly right. You force three turnovers, you should not win a game by 2 points. And if
Yeah,
you, yeah, you have to kill these teams when you have the chance. There's no way they could do what they did last week against the Chiefs and win. So I mean, they might come out and play completely different. I don't know. Like the Bills certainly can win the game. I'm not saying they can. I don't know. It's like that didn't give me any confidence because the narrative around Sean McDermott's that he's been conservative in the past. He was not conservative in the regular season at all. He was one of the most aggressive coaches in the NFL in terms of like maximizing that, going for it when he needed to. But when the big moment came in the playoffs, he did what he always did. That doesn't give me any confidence.
yeah, yeah, I completely agree. And when the light shines brightest, it's there's more pressure, it's more difficult to make those decisions. Like you essentially, my belief and I worked in healthcare previously. So the way that it works in healthcare is that you have essentially all these scenarios predetermined in advance. You already know exactly what you're going to do if there's an issue. uh, so that you don't feel the pressure. It's just you go to the playbook, you read the thing, and you execute. And it's more instinct than anything. And so pressure doesn't factor into the decision-making process. And there's always things that come up that you don't expect that then you have to react to, but you want to limit those as much as possible.
Yeah.
It just kind of feels like the Bills don't do that. Or they deviate from it and trust their gut instinct and get scared.
Yeah.
and then make mistakes. So, and, you know, you look at the other side of the field, Andy Reid, cool as a cucumber, has it all mapped out, all predetermined, all game planned, all prepared, never makes a mistake.
Yeah, and I feel bad for Josh Allen because it's not like his fault at all, you know? It's
Yeah.
solely on the coaching. Like you can't tell me that Josh Allen couldn't have tush pushed 2 times from the 2 yard line and you just go win the game. You know, you don't have to worry about the Ravens going down the field and scoring on you. But, you know, he can only do what the coaches tell him, so hopefully they don't let him down. I feel like they've let him
Yeah,
down in the past.
yeah, agreed. All righty, moving off of NFL. So just an update. You know, I think last week was probably my worst podcast, as we joked about after. You know, my
That's
ability
all
to do
right.
math on the fly was not great. But I did take a little bit of time and built a NFL DataSpace, and I'll just kind of share with everyone. It's still a work in progress, as they kind of always are. You tinker, play with, you know, evolve the theory as you kind of continue to grow. So just so everyone, just to catch everyone up, or if you didn't see last week, you know, the intention in this data space is to take the NHL schedule, take the team stats for the two teams that are playing in each game, come up with a model, mathematical model that compares, you know, based on their performance, similar to what we just looked at in NFL, compares their performance, and then kind of gives you a ranking so that if you're looking at, you know, your upcoming games this week, you can kind of start to use the performance stats to try to find, you know, a gap or a large delta between, you know, the two teams, and then use it to compare against value bets. You know, if you've got a really good team on the road, you know, often you get more value uh, betting on them if you've got a significantly better team as opposed to them being at home and yada yada yada. So I'll just show the math on this one. So I came up with a single ranking here. Why don't we use this week? We'll narrow it down to some games. So I'm just setting a filter for all the games that are being played this week in the NHL. All right. So if that PM. So we get the Sunday games too. And then rank them from top to bottom. And so those teams at the top, you know, that favors the home team. Those teams at the bottom favors the away teams. And you see your kind of the teams that you would expect to see in most instances. So the math is, if we take the home ranking, this will show you the formula. Is so it is, and I'll use down here because it's just easier. We're using something called Z score. So essentially, it takes into account the difference of that team compared to the average of all teams divided by the standard deviation. So that's the kind of the size, the the size of the data set of that particular category. So, and this helps if you have, you know, a really broad data set. You've got one team with 1 wins and one team with 50 wins. That's a very distributed kind of category of data. And so standard deviation then takes that into consideration, that if that is a very broad distribution, it then helps you compare that to something that might be a smaller, more focused distribution, and then normalize it across those two statistical categories. So it's just you get apples for apples when you use that score. So we got wins minus the average of all NHL teams' wins, divided by the standard deviation, kind of gives that. We put a weighting on it. So I weighted kind of 40%, 0.4% for wins, 0.2% for goals for, and then took into consideration goalies because I think they're a major impact in that saves per game. Um, Times to by 100 just so that we get, you know, a larger number with more digits on it, and we get our value of, you know, 3.31 when we take the delta between the two. So it's, you know, I wouldn't mind using some other things like, you know, face-off wins can help understand possession of the puck. Shots on goal help, you know, Corsi helps with possession of the puck, and they kind of give you a better idea of dominance from the teams. So I think I think I might build these two other data points in as well. Just hadn't had time to update it. And I like to build it, start with simplicity and layer on complexity as I go, just so you can kind of make sure that you're going in the right direction and the theory makes sense. So from the eyeball test, Jets are one of the best teams playing a decent team in Utah, but you've got the best versus middle of the pack, lower middle of the pack, best versus lower middle of the pack. Edmonton's been surging lately. They score a lot of goals, so I think it's a bit skewed. Actually, they're catching up in wins. I didn't really realize that they've closed the gap on Winnipeg. Um, interesting. Uh, and interesting that the Jets have scored more goals than. So don't even listen to me. I don't even know what I'm talking about here. This is again why you look at the data and you don't watch highlights and you see, the Oilers scored 5 goals. Because when you look at it, I bet if you the distribution across all games, the Jets are probably more consistent than the Oilers, which is why you end up with more goals for. Um, but it's a really good way to go and find, some of those easy bets, easy. You can build. I'm never a huge fan of parlays, but I don't mind a coward's parlay to get a little bit more value out of a bet. So you could kind of combine a few of these. Um, looking at interesting matchups this week. This one's there's a few of these that are kind of interesting where you have like bad teams versus bad teams and who you think's going to win. So this is saying that there's, a pretty good statistical advantage for the Ducks over the Predators. These are two terrible teams. And the same goes for the Sharks. Maybe it's because the Preds are not a very good team, but that's an interesting one, particularly when you look at the ranking for the Sharks and your ranking for the Ducks. Not good, not good. Um, so yeah, so there's some interesting options here when you compare the data. Um, any games this week that you're looking for, Ben? Anything you want to talk about from a team matchup perspective?
Um, so after our talk last week at the end when we were kind of talking, outlook for teams for like the Stanley Cup and stuff, and we were kind of comparing and contrasting that. I did put I made like a crazy parlay. So I put in I just put like I took each of the NFL teams playing, so I'm guaranteed like I it was like it's like $5. So like each of the four teams playing are the first leg. So I'm guaranteed gonna get and like the Super Bowl winner I have that's guaranteed because I bet all the four teams. So we have that. And then I combined it with a couple other things like college basketball and then hockey. Based off what we were talking last week, I picked the Dallas Stars to win the Western Conference. Um, I mean, I kind of, you were saying how they don't rely on like one player based off of what we were looking at, and they're still very good, which I think would play well in a playoff series theoretically. And I know like they've been good. Like that's a team that I've been high on, when it comes to the playoffs the last few years. It hasn't necessarily panned out, so maybe this year can correct that. But yeah, I'm gonna put some futures in on the Dallas Stars, I guess.
I like it. That reminded me, I should probably create a power ranking for the NHL, kind of off this same theory. So I'll do that as well, and then we can monitor that on a week by week basis to see who's kind of rising and falling, and whether that remains to be a good bet. But yeah, I like
Yeah.
the Dallas Stars.
I mean, it was like that was the first year we did it for football, obviously, because I just came here. But I think like over the course, like I think we did pretty good. Like we had our numbers had the Bills and the Eagles, the top two for the last month or so, and they're both in the conference championships. So I think we did pretty
Yeah,
good for a test run of that.
yeah, and the only one that I would say would be a little bit of an outlier. Like I think the Chiefs is pretty accurate as well. Like if you watch the games, they won all these close games. They were dominant in the win category, but they were not dominant in terms of like blowing teams out, and like it was always close. And so for them to be at Cameron spot they were in, I think that's a good spot. The Commanders is the one that's always interesting to me. Um, because maybe it is just that factor of you've got one really good player, and they can win those games, but they're quite a ways down. Anyways, we'll do the same thing for NHL, maybe for next week. We also need to start doing it for MLB, especially as some of these free agent signings, the tier two groups start falling into place. We'll have to start doing some draft kits. So I'll get busy. I'll start building some data spaces. But looking at this week, like I think that, why don't we do, I was gonna do one other thing. Just gonna set this up real quick. I was gonna bring up Bet365 and just look at the odds for some of these games to see if we can find some. And so for those of you at home, this is exactly what I do when using SportWise. And it would be nice if we had odds data in SportWise, but the problem is I'm sure everyone knows this, is that the odds change so quickly that it's tough to really get a good view of it other than just kind of having them side by side, or if you're, looking at arbitrage opportunities, having unabated or another product like that. What's Spankcast or Spanky's one, have them side by side. But so we look at today, like let's just narrow this in to, here's our games today. So we got the Leafs over the Jackets. Yeah, probably not value bet. I'm actually, this is one of those ones where you look at it in reverse and you're like, that is not, compared to some of the other ones, that's not overly dominant. And part of I always love betting against the Leafs because the Leafs are one of the fan bases where the money moves the line because they're just so popular and people are just constantly betting on their favorite team. And they go in and they look, they're playing the Blue Jackets. This is an easy one. They're gonna roll the Jackets. Well, the Jackets have been pretty good this year, and they're right around a playoff spot. And the data is saying that yes, the Leafs are an advantage, but you're getting good value with plus 170 on the money.
Yeah, I just looked, the Leafs opened -230 and they're down to like -205 as well.
Yeah. So it's moving. It's moving back to the Jackets. What are you using? What do you use for checking your odds data?
You can look usually on the books. Like FanDuel will have it. And then there's a couple other there's like other free tools that you can check betting splits too. And then there's paid ones too. Like certain people have like splits tools that you can purchase. I don't really like put a ton of stock into it, I guess. Nowadays, like we've kind of had this conversation, but there's just so much betting information available now. Like I feel like 20 years ago, like maybe splits would be important because there wasn't information available. So if you were seeing like really heavy differential between, bets and handle, like that would be noteworthy, I guess. But now like there's just so much money being bet on these games every single day that it's really tough to like figure out, especially like the NFL, right? Like there's million like think of how much money is going to be bet on these games this weekend. Like I just don't see how like the splits could pay that much, mean that much, but I do like to see it just to see like where the public is typically.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
I,
mean
I
the Maple Leafs are like always going to be public.
yeah, yeah, exactly. The other thing about the NFL, and I'll just make, I know we talked about this as well. The NFL was just there's not enough games. So it attracts like the wrong type of money because there's just not enough games. Whereas like NHL and MLB is fantastic because you have many games every day. Every team plays 5 days a week. Like it's great.
Yeah.
So you can use some of that a little bit more to understand where the non-fans are going, um, where the smart money is, sharp money. So Devils over. Again, that one's probably not telling you much. Might be a little bit overweight. Bet the Bruins as the contrarian approach, just because you can get some better value there. Then you got the the Jets over Colorado. That'd be a pretty good bet. I might make that bet tonight.
Yeah, Colorado looks good.
No, I would go Jets. I would go
Yeah,
Jets.
like
Yeah.
because of the differential, I mean, right there.
Yeah. Yeah, the
But yeah,
performance data.
bet
Yeah.
bet the opposite. Yeah, like you said,
Yeah.
like instead of just focusing on the top, like we can look at the bottom too to identify, maybe like underdogs or something.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and this is all about away team, home team. So the further
Hmm.
down the scale you are, then it's favoring the away teams. And then you got Florida over LA. That's not bad too. Plus 100.
Yeah.
I might be doing that tonight. So anyways, this is my strategy for using the performance data to kind of come in and find, in a unsophisticated way, marry the odds, and try to find value bets, just based on, performance mismatches. I haven't, I'll publish this. I will say that I haven't back tested it. I haven't played with it very long. This is brand new, so use at your own risk. And I'm going to continue to kind of improve it and monitor it, and hopefully get it back to something like we have in NFL, where by the end of it, it pretty much was pretty accurate as well at finding those mismatches. I think most weeks we went 5 for 6 um, during the regular season. I think last weekend we went 3 for 4, which was pretty good. Um, yeah, I'm not making any promises that the performance data is going to help us going forward, though.
Yeah, it'll be good to
Cool.
experiment though and like build off it, I think.
Yeah, we'll keep updating this each week, and we'll go back and check and see how it's doing. And like I said, I want to add a couple more stats to it to help with possession, because possession is such a big part of hockey.
Interesting.
All
Yeah.
righty. Okay, well that's all I got to share on the NHL side today. But I'll keep building out some other stuff that we can play with and look at.
Yeah, and I know you're not a huge NBA guy, but I'm gonna be doing these for basketball too now that football's winding down. So maybe we can talk about those too as well.
Yeah, and it's funny because it's not that I'm not a big NBA guy. Uh, I played basketball in high school, so I love the game. I find that the NBA is most interesting at the end of the season,
Yeah.
and the storylines are, it's kind of like I love golf. There's some tournaments where there's no big names playing, and so I don't normally watch those tournaments, and I really watch when it counts. So yeah, I'm looking forward to talking more about it and getting plugged in, particularly as we start uh, figuring out who's going to be in the playoffs and down the stretch.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Ben, thanks for another great week, another good chat. We'll be back next week. We'll keep it going. All right, everybody. Have a great day. Talk to you later.